Volodymyr Zelensky's been flying around again, guys, in Brussels today, trying to persuade the
Yeah.
European Council and all members of the EU to sign up to this idea that they use these funds that they've frozen, Russian funds in Belgium, to fund Ukraine going forward. I understand from all the analysts that if they don't get money soon, they're going to run out of money both for rebuilding and for munitions, and the economy's in a bit of a state, as you would expect, really, having to fight Russia. There's some debate going on because EuroClear, which is the international depository for funds that I guess you'd probably know more about this than I do. Countries invest money elsewhere. I guess that's probably on a security basis in case things go wrong internally, and so that they can call upon those funds as and when they need them. And Russia's got about 185 to 210 billion invested with this depository EuroClear based in Belgium. Now, understandably, the Belgians are a bit wary of this. They're worried about any legal action that the Russians might take.
Yeah, it was funny enough. When I first heard this idea, that's immediately where my thoughts went. It's not should you, but can you? Because whether you like it or not, when a customer, bringing it right back to our old world, enters into a banking contract with you, it's their money. And I know there's all sorts of legal instruments that can be introduced to effectively sequester those funds away, but you obviously have to have very firm reasons for doing so and legal reasons for doing so. So I kind of sympathize with Belgium a little bit, because if it did all go wrong, would they be left
holding the baby?
Holding the baby.
Yeah.
And would the rest of Europe go, well, I'm awfully sorry, but...
Yeah.
So I can see why they're a little bit uncomfortable. I think I read somewhere that the sum is actually greater than GDP of Belgium.
Right.
So,
oh dear.
Which probably says more about Belgium than it does about the principle. But yeah, I get it. I understand why they're very nervous about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting, I suppose I'm babbling a bit, but if during the Second World War, for example, there has to be a line, I would guess, where almost all bets are off, where you say, if you were at war with Nazi Germany, we wouldn't at the time be saying, oh, I'm a bit worried, German funds invested with the Bank of... We're a bit worried about whether they might take us to court or what. There's a crossing of that line, isn't there? Where
yeah, but Belgium aren't at war with Russia, are they?
They're not. No, they're not technically
so
at war with...
that's where...
Well...
isn't it called force majeure in contracts, that expression?
Is it?
Yeah, where most contracts you sign has a force majeure clause, which effectively means if anything happens out like an act of God, terrorism, war, all bets are off. But of course, they're not at war, as I've already said, with Russia. So they can't really play that one in.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not at war. All the commentary that we've had in the last week, I mean, we're moving the goalposts a little bit in terms of our discussion from the head of MI6. Did you see her? I forget what her name is now.
Blaise
Meteroni or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Very,
she doesn't look old enough to be the head of MI6.
She doesn't. No. She looks quite young and attractive, and it's very much out of James Bond. I mean, it was very much James
Didn't
Bond.
She used to be Q and now she's M or something?
She did. Yeah. There was her, and then there was the military man in the serge uniform.
Russi. The Russi conference.
Saying that we're at war with Russia, even though we don't know it. And
no, he's the guy who said, well, there's a 5% chance, which means there's a chance. And he was putting percentages on it.
Was he? 5% chance that we were actually in a shooting match.
No, we would be in the next 5 years. So he basically said, prepare your sons and daughters, didn't he?
Yeah, that's good news, isn't it? It's a bit worrying.
And there was, who is it? Is it Germany have introduced national service? He was, I think, talking about them as an example, because the other issue, like it or not, is the Ukraine war, which is almost 4 years old now, has given the Russians an awful lot of training.
Yeah.
In modern warfare.
Yeah. Well, I heard somebody else from the military side of things talking about how we're giving due consideration. I mean, You know, it's like you're in the middle of a house that's burning down. You're giving due consideration to getting yourself a fire extinguisher. We're giving due consideration to an Iron Dome system that the Israelis have got to shoot down ballistic missiles and drones. We're thinking about it.
Helpful.
The way these things, how long they take,
Yeah.
it won't be. But anyway, I'm digressing a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. Where were
No,
we?
no, no.
Yeah.
So this all ties in with, because there's a number of other things that I thought fitted this quite well. There's talk about all of a sudden the government and Yvonne Cooper have got all itchy about Roman Abramovich and his $2.5 billion that he was supposedly
I
meant to
thought
give
he'd
to
already,
Ukraine.
yeah, I must admit, I thought that ship had sailed. I
Yeah.
thought he'd already given his rubles over.
He clearly hasn't. No.
But he wants to give them to the Russians, doesn't he?
Well, well, this is the thing, I think. There's some ambiguity as to how friendly or otherwise he is with Vladimir Putin and Gerasimov and the people in the Kremlin. Because you remember he showed up at the peace talks in Turkey just after this had all kicked off as being some sort of honest broker, didn't he? Do you remember that? And then he was forced. And I have some, okay, this is going to sound a bit peculiar, but I have some sympathy to a degree with him. I don't really understand why forcing him as an individual to sell Chelsea Football Club was, action that we took as a result of. I mean, it's very high profile. Clearly, it makes big news. It doesn't really help much in terms of
Really?
of the war itself. And I'm not quite sure either. I've been trying to dig into this, how the agreement was that if you sell off Chelsea Football Club, you and keep the proceeds, you've got to give $2.5 billion to Ukraine.
Yeah, I think his interpretation is that those impacted by the war, and his argument is there's been a lot of Russians,
The Russians
which is true
as well. Yeah, yeah.
Well, they have, haven't they? Russian families who've
Well, that's
lost
true.
sons
Yeah.
and fathers and daughters.
That's true. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I suppose he's got there is an argument that says that, which brings me on as we're talking about the monies in terms of the monies held in Belgium, because overnight there's been some suggestion that on the other side of the Atlantic, that the Americans are pressuring the Europeans not to go ahead with this seizure of these funds.
Yes.
And well, you won't be surprised to hear, because the use of these funds is all encompassed within Donald's 28-point peace
plan. Yeah.
And quel surprise. I mean, guess what their intent is with this money?
No, let me guess. Invest in capital projects in rebuilding Ukraine on a 50-50 deal with Russia.
Well, have you read this?
No, go on.
86 billion in frozen Russian assets would be invested in US-led efforts to rebuild and invest in Ukraine, and the US would receive 50% of the profits.
Oh, there you go.
Trump intends to take that money out of Russian assets frozen in Europe and use that profit both for the US government and US companies. The rest of the frozen funds still, I mean, because this includes other funds, not just those in Belgium, the rest of the frozen funds, still more than 200 billion euros, would be invested in a joint US-Russian investment vehicle to create a strong incentive not to return to conflict, according to the proposal. However, this would merely benefit Washington and Moscow, but not Ukraine. So effectively, I mean, you couldn't write this stuff, could you? And they're putting pressure on the Europeans. So there's a crunch coming down the line here as to where they go with this. I mean, there is another plan, because they've been using the interest on this money in furtherance of Ukraine's war in Russia.
Okay.
But the other plan is that the money is lent directly by the European Union, but this money is effectively held as a guarantee.
Collateral.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And left where it is, so that the Belgians aren't left holding this huge Russian baby.
Yeah. Well, it does bring into question what happens when hopefully the war is over and the money is returned.
Yeah.
Or wherever it goes. But it's the most odd. I mean, that that US proposal is bonkers, but it's the most odd state of affairs.
It is. And I mean, well, there has to be some money, but you've said before, and I think I saw Steve Rosenberg last night on the BBC saying,
We had a man who can't say anything. Yeah.
quite rightly, as you said before, was saying that the Russian economy is in a parlous state. So it's a shame, really, that we haven't got a more, Biden or whoever. I mean, Biden perhaps wasn't the most appropriate president at the time, but we haven't got a more Ukraine friendly president, because a little bit further down the line, were they to be receiving the necessary financial support, Ukraine, then I think Russia would get to a point where they'd have to sue for peace. But we look as though we're about to hand them everything they want on a platter, doesn't it?
It does look that way.